Welcome to Vlog Thursday number 431, Self-Hosted Security and Homelab Q&A. The self-hosted and security topic, I think, is going to be a dedicated video coming soon where I make some pretty graphs and charts and all those things that people like to help explain it. And it's a topic that is very relevant, very popular. There's a lot of debate, especially when it's more than just self-hosting things. The security topic really hits home when people go, I want to expose services. I'm always like, first, just do a VPN. And people are like, oh, no, I want to expose services. So I'm like, okay, I will start that video out basically saying, so you've decided to expose yourself. Let's talk about how to secure yourself. I think that'll, a little lead in on that, because there's a lot of questions around it, as there should be. If you start exposing public services, then you have just a lot of challenges that come with that, especially when people don't want to update things. And I'll throw Nextcloud out there as one of the examples, because someone had tagged me on the socials about Nextcloud. And I'm like, yeah, let me move the microphone a little bit. Nextcloud's well known for, especially if you're running on TrueNAS. If you're running it otherwise, it works. But in TrueNAS, it breaks a lot. So people tend not to update things, worried about it breaking, which of course leads to the next problem of pwnage. Because if there's a security problem in an old version and you're not updating to the new version, well, then you're now part of the problem. And I get it. VPNs are inconvenient, as easy as they are. Things like Netbird make your life really simple. Things like Tailscale make your life easy. But people don't want to run a VPN. They want to expose those services. So I figure this is time for people to ask those questions, and it'll make its way into the video. I'll answer any questions, of course, people throw at me, unless there's something I just don't know. But that's an upcoming topic that I'm thinking a lot about. Now, Matt's in the background working on a couple things, because there's a lot of different Yes, a lot of different ways to host things. Hey, look, it's a random rail stream spotting. It's my friend Mike. The whole idea of when you self-host, of how do you self-host? Do you expose your public IP? Do you not have a public IP? Do you use a VPS server? Those are all questions I want to answer as well in the video. So in the background, Matt's doing a video on Pangolin, which seems to be a pretty straightforward, popular tool for setting up. Straightforward is to be determined, because the video is not done yet, but there's a few people who have talked about it. So we took a look at it as well. And then I will do a comparison video, because I have done the video already on Cloudflare tunnels. And there's a active discussion in my forums right now about the difference between a Cloudflare tunnel, which is really just a reverse proxy. Just Cloudflare put a fancy name on it because it has a lot of fancy features, and it's not a bad solution. But as I chimed in, as others did in that discussion, is easy as Cloudflare tunnels is, the other side is it mates you with Cloudflare. Cloudflare is doing the termination of the encryption, because they're the ones handling the certificate. So they would have, not that they're known to be doing something nefarious, but they're going to have a level of visibility. They have a level of trust you have to give them. And of course, you have to deal with their terms and conditions. And I'm not really big on just saying everyone should just use Cloudflare tunnels. It's not a bad solution. I'm not telling you not to use it. Just look and consider the options on there that are options that are available for you to use. Because tying yourself to a company and being at their whim is something that, well, a lot of people are self-hosting to avoid. And right now, and someone can correct me if this has been changed, but to my knowledge, in the self-hosted world with Cloudflare tunnels, if you're trying to host videos, I believe that goes against their terms and condition. And maybe they have changed them, but from my knowledge, that was a while ago. I had looked that up, and that was one of the rules they had. You can't host videos on it. And maybe you want to host videos. You have the bandwidth, you're paying for it. Why not? But of course, that's the whole thing. Yeah. So Veronica's chiming in too. And I think that's, it's still, as far as I know, I mean, keeping up with terms and conditions is always a challenge. That's its own, thing. Not to mention, I remember someone having this, and maybe this is a good use of AI because undoubtedly they're using AI to do it. Someone should just start feeding all these terms and conditions into multiple AIs, because I don't trust these AI systems because they're known to hallucinate. But someone should like feed these terms and conditions on there and say, please tell me how this company's trying to screw me in the terms and conditions. There's probably a good use case for AI right there, because it does read legalese really well because it's consumed a bunch of legalese stuff. I've actually had it find things in contracts. It's actually kind of an interesting use case for AI, something that it's decent at. I guess you'd have to use one of the online ones, not necessarily self-hosted though. And I bring that up because the context windows may not be enough for how long the terms and conditions might be for some things. But I think it's a good use of, it might be a good use to AI. Go spin up a little instance of Gemini and just dump all that stuff in there. Do you think it's a good practice to use UFW on nodes on the Homelab? Yeah, the firewall basically on Linux. Yes, it's an absolutely great practice. Thinking to use Ansible to manage config to make life easier. Is curious if it's overkill. I don't think it's overkill, and I do like, especially in the Homelab world and things like that, where the attitude of overkill is the only kill. I just like that phrase, because I don't think you can really go too far unless you're annoying yourself. Like if you've made it to the point where you can't get anything done, okay, maybe. But in general, this is a topic I'll talk about. I mean, awesome if you want to go all the way to Ansible to make your life easier, because if you have a lot of servers, that might make sense. I mean, but for me, when I was hosting a lot of things, it's not bad to have a clear set of rules. Like, let's say we have a Bastion server or a jump box, and we have that on our network. And then we take all of our other servers and we say, only talk to that. That's like the first step. We're going to use SSH to admin our servers, and we're going to say SSH is only available here. Now, what this allows you to do is stop lateral movement. So if someone comes in, gets to that server, like, aha, I got the server. Oh, there's nothing good on this server. Let's look, our east-west, as they may call it in security. We're looking left and right. We're looking east-west. We're trying to figure out what other servers can I get over to. Well, if you can't talk to those other servers because the services are bound only to talk to and firewalled off, so they're only talking to that one Bastion server, well, you just eliminated the east-west part. Not to mention, if you're using something like Cloudflare Tunnel or a reverse proxy of any type, you can open up those ports on that server and say you're only allowed to talk to the reverse proxy. So once again, if someone gets into your collection of servers and are on the same subnet, some people want to use the firewall all the time, like your actual firewall, to do this, and then create a whole bunch of micro segmentation that way. And you can assign a subnet, a small subnet for each of your servers, and then you're relying on the firewall. But honestly, the firewalls are quite good in Linux. They're exactly what they're running in most firewalls is a firewall Linux. So someone's going to have an opinion on exactly which one you want to use. Generally speaking, when you're blocking ports and you're blinding the threat actor who would take over your server and laterally move between networks, they start looking around and they can't even ping anything. They're not going to know it's there. So unless someone has given them a roadmap to try to even figure out where those servers are, they're blind from the get-go. So it's absolutely a great idea to be able to do that. And of course, if you did it with Ansible, you could define in the Ansible settings, like, hey, this is my Bastion server. And by doing it with something like Ansible, you'd be able to go, I want to move where my Bastion server is. And you could just run the Ansible to send it. Of course, you have to be careful, because if you put the wrong one, you would lock yourself out of all the systems. So also have a plan B to get back in all those systems. What's the most secure way to access self-hosted services without it being exposed to the world? Honestly, not that I'm trying to just push Tailscale. They're not at all we have talked to them, but they've never sponsored anything on my channel. I think Tailscale is one of the really dead simple ones out there, but so is Netbird. Netbird and Tailscale are both really easy to do without having to open up any ports. Obviously, running a VPN yourself, 2 thumbs up. VPN is great. VPNs are well vetted. OpenVPN or WireGuard, both of them I think are fine. They're both available in pfSense. They're both available in OpenSense. They're both available in Unifi. I think, quote, and someone can correct me on this, I think both of them work perfectly fine in OpenWRT. I've never tested them. I'm not a big user of OpenWRT, but OpenWRT is a popular solution, and it does have some VPN functions in there. So you can run your own VPN. You could have an always-on VPN with something like overlay networks that Tailscale or Netbird provide. I think they're both solid solutions. And this definitely those are good ways to do it. Matter of fact, maybe I'm boring and I run my forums and my web server not at home, but in a VPS because it's cheap, and I don't have a generator here at my home lab, and I don't have one on our building at CNWR either. Neither one of those places have a way for me to have fully redundant backup power and survive long-term outages. So I spend a few dollars a month to host my forums because my forums are getting like 90,000 people a week hitting it. I think it's like roughly 90,000 a week hit my forums. Those people are looking for things. I don't want the forums not to be there because of some event that happens at a city. So I choose to host that there. I have a VPN for all the other services I host because I don't have them publicly exposed, and I'm fine with that. So I always keep everything behind a VPN. It just makes my life easier. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of Ansible templates for setting up the firewall as well. That's probably a pretty common use. Even though I wasn't doing it, I know there's a lot of people that are, and so there's undoubtedly Ansible playbooks you could find to help template this and not have to build it from scratch. By going all the way, you have the risk of learning something new. Yes. OpenWT does have both. Cool. I figured they had both. Issue a VPN that inhales battery juice when my phone syncs photos to Nextcloud. Yeah, that's always going to be a challenge with any of the always on VPNs. They always on VPN plus some type of synchronization tool. That's just kind of a figuring it out type thing. Figuring out what's your what's your tolerance for sucking battery juice? Do you need it real time synced, or do you go, I'm fine with waiting till I get home to sync it, or waiting to set it on the charger? I'm eventually probably going to move away from Synology Photo one day. I just use it because it works for my personal stuff. But I do have Synology Photos, for example. I like the app itself has an option that says only sync when charging. And, I guess there is a risk that if I'm on vacation, I take some vacation photos and I don't sync it back to my Synology and I break my phone, there's a chance they could be lost. That just comes back to risk tolerance. What are the best methods for documenting your home lab? I don't know if there's an easy answer to say this is the best method, but people like wikis, people like things like Bookstack. I don't use the Wikimedia anymore. I used to, but I think that's a good one. There are tools out there though as well to help auto document, which is really good. Netbox is a really popular tool for some of the auto documentation. What auto documentation means is you tie it into certain things that can pull data, and it starts building the documentation off the data that's out there. But just generally, at least having documentation, whether you even keep it in just some basic documents, like I want to say Word doc, but that's not the word. I don't use Microsoft Word, so I would probably say like a LibreOffice document, not terrible, and draw.io for your diagrams. Huge. Definitely recommend it. Definitely can get you a lot further. I give away free templates. If you head over to my GitHub, there are lots of the diagrams that I've used in my videos are available on my GitHub for you to download and start with the template, because nothing worse than staring at a whole lot of objects and go, which is the first one I dragged to this blank canvas to start building my network map. You need to level up your Ansible skills. Yeah. Once you start playing with it, I'm not by any means an Ansible expert, but I've had friends that are, and I've got to see some fancy stuff they do. Really impressive. I defer photo sync until I'm home, ditch the VPN. Yeah. Like I said, it's not, it would suck to lose vacation photos, I guess, but it's not, I guess it's not that big of a deal. If it's something once in a lifetime, I took a photo of something, I'll turn a VPN on to it. But generally, I just take a lot of random pictures and selfies going, I was here, snap. So they're not, I would be disappointed to lose them, but it's certainly not critical. I actually think it's funny that you used to take a lot of photos of things, and they're so much different now with the phone, because instead of just photos of things I took with a digital camera, I have photos of me in those scenes. I do have, only because I use it for recording, I got a little stick I hold, but it's kind of cool because I can do a wide angle selfie with me and my wife when we travel. So there's a lot more of me in my vacation photos. I think it's one of those things that's looking back going, that's something that's changed over the years. VxRail E560. You know, I don't keep up with the hardware, but let's look it up real quick. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just don't know how old the V560 is, or VX560. Is it called VxRail? I'm not finding the model, or I'm typing it wrong. There we go. Does it say when it was released? Driver download documentation. I don't know when it was released. That's part of the... I mean, the problem with older servers, generally speaking, is they just draw a lot more power. Doesn't mean there's not plenty of life left in them. Doesn't mean they're not usable. They just frequently don't have good power characteristics. So your power bill is the consideration there. And noise, they're probably not as quiet as, you know, one of the little modern mini PCs. I'm actually super impressed with how well these new AMD mini PCs, and even the Intel ones as well, they run a great Homelab for very low wattage, low noise, low heat because of the low wattage. So they're not taking up a lot of room. And I think that's pretty awesome. And it may be a better deal, but you can't beat servers for, you know, really high-end hardware that's built to last. Servers have a, generally speaking, better quality build to them. You're going to have more drive options. You're going to have dual power supplies in a lot of them. So yeah, definitely you know, some considerations. It's hard to really say which way to go, but you know, if you want to run a heavier workload and really push it, the high-end servers are really nice for that too. They generally have good power heat dissipation. They're made to really be pushed at high wattage. I don't know how, we just don't have enough data. If one of the mini PCs were to be peaked at, you know, 100% CPU usage over time, would it eventually, I mean, I've run the thermals and people have run some games on them to show that they'll run for quite a while, but you know, I don't think they have that same industrial level build that a server has. Ansible poll will be a good way to manage the firewall micro segmentation. Yeah, actually, the interesting thing is if you're doing Ansible push where you're pushing it there versus poll where you say check in and pull a new config, that can be really handy because if you goof something up, as long as the goof up didn't break the networking and it's still pulling the new config, you can ungoof by pushing a new config. And when it goes to the cycle, if you say, let's say every 5 or 10 minutes, we grab a new config, if you were to lock yourself out of it, you could change a config and it would pull the new config and not lock you out of it. Do you recommend Apple? That's a mixed bag. I don't like Apple as a company at all. I will defer to Behind the Bastards, Steve Jobs. They have 4 episodes on if you want to know what kind of an awful human being Steve Jobs is. And Tim Cook's mentioned in there a couple times. They could do a whole episode about him. So if you're thinking it from that aspect, not thrilled with Apple. If you're asking, does Apple make good hardware? I happen to have a MacBook Air. So, you know, you deal with the conflicts in your head with things like that going, Tim Cook's not a good person. Also, MacBook Air, great tool for having super crazy long battery life and being able to, you know, just works type of thing. I use it because communications, that's all I really use my MacBook Air for. It's not like my daily driver. I like Linux better. So it's fuzzy saying, what does Tom recommend Apple? You inspired me to install TrueNAS on my new NAS. I like that. TrueNAS on my new NAS. My girlfriend wants to back up her photos to it from her Nikon. What's a good way to sync photos to a NAS? Now, the crowd's opinion will probably be, and I don't have another solution, so I'll going with the crowd opinion, but not something I tested. There's a tool called Image, and everyone seems to like Image. It is pretty good. Now, if you're if you're just thinking of the Nikon, I mean, I imagine at that point you're just doing it as a share. Sorry, let me throw this in here. But this is a self-hosted photo and video management solution. It's kind of nice looking and has some cool features. It looks a whole lot like Google Photos. So if you're looking for a way to do it, Image seems to be a pretty popular choice. IMMICH. That is one of the apps available. I think there's a couple photo apps available in TrueNAS. Always wait until I plug my phone into sync. So your YouTubers reviewing this neat little travel NAS unified drive, but considering it being crowdfunded, that's a bit scary. I'm always worried when they're not open source as well, by the way. That's my concern, because my trust in companies that aren't open source is really, really low. Because sometimes I have to. I'm not saying I'm a purist and running nothing but open source. Roll back 10 seconds and call me out for using a Apple device, which obviously is not open source. But I do lean, especially when these Kickstarter projects, that please tell me you're going to have some open source software. This goes back to things like not just TrueNAS being open source, Jet KVM. I got one sitting over there, so I had to look at it to remember the name. But the Jet KVM, they open sourced it. Awesome. Gives you a lot more confidence in the product. How do you determine the right DAC cable length? You could use string to measure. That's always a challenge, is trying to figure out exactly how long you need. You got to measure it. It's sometimes a little bit of trial and error, and you're like, crap, I bought one that's just a little bit too short. And then the next size up is definitely going to have a service loop on each side to take up the slack. But it can be a little bit challenging. I'm certainly not an expert at it. Oh, and auto SF20 cables like Ubiquities are passive. Yeah, the Ubiquiti cables are fine. And by the way, Ubiquiti makes has the DAC cables with the Ubiquiti. They call it like the flash or EEPROM on them. Ubiquiti is not picky about which ones work in them. They're actually pretty flexible on that if you don't use Ubiquiti ones as well, which I like. You can use theirs or you can use others, and they seem to work. Talking about efficiency, how well XCP&G handles mixed P cores and P cores from Intel. It doesn't have any specific optimization for them. There is a discussion about that in the forums. My understanding is it works. I have no idea how good or bad it actually takes advantage of it. I actually am not sure that any hypervisor manages the P and E cores like dynamically well. Like, even it's not just about kernel support, it's about whether or not there's any functionality in the hypervisor to do something differently, like run these VMs on here and run those VMs in there. So I don't really know. PhotoPrism is another one. That one's been around for, I think, a little bit longer. I know that's pretty sure that one's in the list as well. So let's look. What do we have in my NAS? I don't think I have either one of them set up on mine. Filter for media. So there's image, and not that you can't load another one altogether on here. I don't see PhotoPrism in here. Did I miss it? Hold on. Whoops. Nope. I put the search in the wrong thing. I meant to put the application search. Oh, yeah. PhotoPrism's in here. There's me looking right by it. There's also something called Pig. I'm not going to PIWGO, however you pronounce that, and Pi Gallery, a fast directory first photo gallery website, rich UI, optimized for running on low resource servers. So they have a low resource option. PhotoPrism is an AI powered one. That's kind of cool. You've been using for image the last 10 months and you like it a lot. That's awesome. And it's not dependent on any hardware like Synology Photos. Yeah, completely. Like the dependency on Synology, I admit that I don't love that. But It's one of those, it works. Piwigo. Oh, there we go. I'm super glad Veronica's here and helps me pronounce things. Because I did not know that's how it said Piwigo. I mean, the moment you said that, it makes complete sense now. Let's see. Yep. English is fun. So we don't use little accents over the letters to tell us how we were supposed to express that. So Jeff at Craft Computing did a video. Proxmox with the right microcore install does well with the new P core Z cores. But does Proxmox have anything built into it that lets you assign E cores to one VM and P cores to the other? I don't know. I mean, maybe it does, but that's obviously that would be the way to really optimize it. Sonic Network Operating System. Yep. Sonic OS. This is a really cool project. And I brought this up recently because Sonic is what's running on those Unifi ECS aggregations. They have the Unifi essentially management plane sitting on top, but behind the scenes is Sonic. And Sonic's really neat because this is a Linux Foundation project, and it decouples software and hardware, accelerates software evolution, and rapidly growing ecosystem. Essentially, the large hyperscalers needed something that could route data at incredible speeds, and they all have collaborated to some degree on Sonic. So you have chips that are very special in the networking space when you go to that speed, and you need a common way to control those chips. So using Sonic, and and I'm not a complete expert on Sonic, but my general understanding is there's a Sonic build based on the chips that are chosen, and now you can use Sonic to do really high speed 100+ gig network routing and on special hardware. So for users, yeah, I've never used it. It can do more. You can use it on a lot of different hardware. But by the way, the formatting on this, it is a command line driven. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know who else has done it, but Unifi is the only company I can name off the top of my head that put a really put a UI on top of it. But of course, the downside at present here in April of 2025, there is not the full Sonic OS functionality that you're not going to get 100% of that from Unifi. They just don't have it all yet, but they're developing it. Their first devices with Sonic running on it have been released, and there's probably going to be more because Sonic is very powerful. And it's just one of those, long-term development situations. This is also true of Unifi in general. The complaint in the early days of Unifi that aggravated many Homelab people, and myself included, where they had firewalls that were very capable. You could do a lot from the command line on a firewall that was built by Unifi. You couldn't do it through the UI. And it took them a long time to get a lot of the features into the interface so we could use them. And the problem with doing it from the command line is, well, it's a pain because every time you update anything from the UI or there's an update to that firewall, it blows away all those changes you made. There's a ton of old documentation, like how to custom modify the JSON config file to do this. But the moment you update the thing, you got to go put those modifications back in. So then people started building automated scripts. And at some point, just don't use their web interface, do it from the command line. That's kind of the solution. But yeah, it's the same thing. People will bring up BIOS once in a while, which is also a network operating system / firewall. BIOS is really cool, but BIOS is also, very command line. Some people think that's fine. Some people are going, no, I don't want my firewall to be very command line driven. Technically, to my knowledge, you can run OpenWRT completely from the command line to manage that as well. I don't think there's definitely people, not all of them. There's definitely a number of people that do, but not everyone. What Someone please tell me the name because I can't remember his name right now. I have him on my other YouTube channel because I subscribe to it. Who's the person that's building the new OpenWRT 10 gig router? Someone throw me the name in there. That's a really cool project if anyone hasn't heard of it. I think they just finally got their boards done, but he's been documenting the journey on YouTube, and I think it's really cool. They're using vector packet routing in order to make that work. They're using a lot of the same high-end things that Tensor, the product from Netgate, uses. Let me find that real quick. Because this is the Tensor, which allows for really high-speed routing. And the way they do this is they have a lot of features. Once again, there's not much for web UI for it. I think they're working on it, but mostly this is all about command line, but really high-speed, powerful networking technology. Yeah. So they're doing the same thing. You get your data plane with DPDK and then vector packet routing. So the DPDK libraries allow for, specialized hardware to do really, really fast switching without putting it into the CPU. I'm not an expert on this. Yep. Toma Zaman. But I'll share this here for anyone who wants to dive into it. There's a lot you can learn just from the process of what he's going through. I think it's a great series that he's doing for how this works. Just really cool. Pre-orders it up. He talks about the speed, how it works. So can a single 1.2 gigahertz core process do 10 gigs? Yes, it can. This is it's really cool walking through everything he had to do to make this work. It also gives you an idea of some of the challenges in it. And this is just to get it routing traffic. So it's a really fun, deep dive into some of the back end of how that works. I want to ask you, I know it depends on what app is being hosted. How often do you update your self-hosted apps automatically once a week or manually every month? Oh, I do it as soon as I know there's a new update. You can use tools to do things like use Watchtower. There's tools out there to let you know. Some tools let me know themselves. Like I know there's an update to Open Web UI whenever, because it tells me, it'll realize there's a new version and I update it right away. I mean, there is a pattern on the business side. We're doing it on a prescripted basis. We know there's an update. We look for the update window. We'll load the new version. Unless it's a security update, then you do it out of band. But yeah, for me, my Homelab stuff, I update right away. I don't hesitate. Matter of fact, I would say I update really frequently because I've often been trying beta. Right now, I switched almost all, and I only didn't do all of them because sometimes people have a question that I need to answer on the current version as opposed to the beta version. I'm on the release candidate for TrueNAS. And so I only have 1 or 2 TrueNASs I haven't updated to the latest version. I've updated all the other ones to the release candidate. So sometimes I go beyond just releases. But that's me. I like cutting edge. I like the newest version of things and keeping up with it. So the first network I managed for work was Unifi based and was very welcoming for a newbie at the time, especially the wearing all hats IT guy. And this is a challenge a lot of people have, is the fact that they have to wear a lot of hats. I get it if you are a dedicated, this is actually, we'll roll back to the art of network engineering. Let me pull that up real quick here, because this was a good discussion I think they had. So if you go over to my Launch Systems, click on the creators we love, the Art of Network Engineering is one of the people I have in the list here. They did a talk about firewalls. So one of the things you realize, they work at the enterprise level. And at the enterprise level, there's someone dedicated to each task. Like I'm the network person. All I do is touch VLANs and make sure the switches are patched and up to date. And that works. And another person does the firewall rules. And another person does that. And if you're a task-focused large enterprise, delegated out to each person has a compartmentalized job they do. Sure, maybe they just like doing it for the command line, but the majority, the larger people, I mean, there's a lot of people working enterprise, but there's a whole lot more people that have 10 hats as a sysadmin. You're unjamming a printer. You're showing them where the ink goes in their printer because that's apparently, has a plug in it. Therefore, it's IT's problem. Then you fix someone's email problem when they accidentally thought they deleted everything. And then you're like, hold on, let me patch this server. Hold on. You need to change the network setting. Hold on, let me get in the firewall real quick. Do you want to remember the commands that you only use once in a while to change it? Or do you want to look at a nice web UI and hit a pull down menu and go click? So yeah, it can be handy to have some nice interfaces for those. Does the Jet KVM support USB-C alt mode for video, tablet, phone? I don't know. I'm going to go with no, because it only pulls video over HDMI. I have all my container configs in GitHub. Use a Reno VapeBot to track updates. So I get a PR and have Ansible code pull them. Probably overkill, but sick of Watchtower breaking things. Yeah, I don't use Watchtower because I do things manually, but that's interesting to have it done that way too. That's not a bad config. I need to probably build something like that. That would be interesting for sure, to have a whole pipeline that auto updates. I'm not that fancy. Yeah, the everything IT person. There's so many people that it's just the nature of it for a lot of small businesses. You wear a lot of hats. Even us as an IT/MSP, we're not going to spend all day on the command line doing everything. It's impractical to, unless you are just doing a ton of it, then you hire someone dedicated to do that, and they're going to love the command line. So there's multiple solutions for a reason, because the market isn't one thing. The market is a very diverse ecosystem of things, and what you do in that market is interesting. One thing I mentioned that might be insightful for people looking to, I always like the edges of things. And let me pull up here to the creators we love. So the specifically with the art of network engineering, let me click it so I can get to the episode, our podcast. This one right here, Firewalls Are Friends, is the episode I'm talking about. And it's just fun listening to people because they're really knowledgeable on the network engineering stuff from a switch perspective and a few other things, but they have a hard time understanding some of the stuff like DMZ. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, listen to them talk about it. And it also is leading me to, okay, I probably should do a really good deep dive firewall explainer video so people have a better understanding of how that works. What do you do when you go on vacation? Do you have a travel router? Nope. I've used Netbird and I've used Tailscale. I've gone back and forth between them. And sometimes I just use my own VPN. So those are my three options. When I travel, I bring a single device with me. And so I don't really need a travel router. I just bring my laptop. Because I only have my laptop, I don't know what else I need to connect to it. So, people really like the travel routers, and I get it. And I think the GL.i ones are popular, but I just don't travel with stuff. Like, I have friends that are traveling with their kids and everything else, and I got 10 devices. So they bring a travel router. So it's the same SSID and everything just connects to it. Nothing wrong with that. I travel with me and my wife, and yeah, it's often, I just don't need much else. This company probably makes the most popular of their travel routers. So is it these little ones? Which one is it? The pocket size Wi-Fi 6 router. I know these are really popular for it. I'm pretty sure these are running, these ones that run OpenWRT. Yep. Runs OpenWRT 2102. Yeah, those are probably the more popular ones. Yes, GL.iNet is sending me one of those. They reached out and wanted to send me one. I said, sure.
I never reviewed any of their travel routers because I don't know, maybe I should. I think the GL.iNet routers are just anyone I talk to seems to like them. Maybe I'll grab one and play around with it. I like that they're running OpenWRT. So they're pretty neat little boxes. Tri-band Wi-Fi 7 router. Fancy. It's got MLO. 2.5 gig WAN port. What do these things cost? Maybe I'll buy one just to test it. I like when something is not available. I like when companies send it to me so I can play with it ahead of time. That's cool. But I also don't mind buying stuff because it's just no worries about the company trying to put terms and conditions on me. They got some cell routers too. Neat. Yeah, I have a few Jet KVMs. I paid for those. They did. I bought the Jet K. Oh no, wait. They did send me one pre-order. They sent me one. They reached out and said send me one. I said sure, but I also bought one. So, and I was like, as soon as I started using it, I really liked it from day one. The Jet KVM. I mean, yeah. I was sold enough to buy them. So I did get one, but I also spent my money on more of them because I think they're great. Yeah, they run their OpenWRT for the routers. You can install stock OpenWRT on most of them. That's cool too. The GL.iNet Wi-Fi 7 will be nice since I assume they'll be contributing code back to the upstream support the SoC provides. Hopefully so. I like when companies contribute back to open source. You know, you borrow from the open source pool, you can give back to the open source pool. Definitely a wonderful thing. Yeah, I know there's some tooling built into OpenWRT that allows for bonding, which is awesome. Which ones have? This is really nice that they've actually listed out the speeds on here. Awesome. Speeds and wattage, because the only place I'd probably use this would be, if I wanted to use it in my camper, having the built-in cellular would be pretty cool. I imagine they work with Google Fi. That's what I use. Cellular routers use mobile data connection, provide internet access in areas with limited or no traditional broadband access. They're perfect for remote locations, mobile applications like RVs. Hey, that's me. I have a camper. Speaking of UBNT, did you see the G6 cameras built-in AI for $200? Yes. Yeah, I have some upcoming videos for Unifi all on their AI key, and I've been testing it for a while. I wanted to do a more thorough test, not just a review, like a production test. So there's definitely some things going on in the back end that we're working on for Unifi. So yeah. Ooh, what's your favorite distro to recommend for Homelab self-hosted beginners? Mine's still Debian, but Ubuntu has some advantages. I'm such a fan of Debian myself. It's just my go-to because I always felt comfortable with it. I remember when I first got into Linux, I was a Red Hat person, but I think many of us, well, there's some Slackware people out there. I'll give them their due. Maybe a couple OpenSUSE, but definitely Debian, took storm in, I think it was early 2000s amongst the people I knew that knew Linux. So I started Red Hat, but Red Hat always had the RPM dependency hell stuff. I don't know what, was it RPMs back then? I think so. it was always dependency problems when I was updating SendMail. I was a mail server admin, and we rebuilt and redid things on Debian, and my problems went away. So I've always been like, oh, Debian. And when Ubuntu came out, I first tried Ubuntu, but had a couple problems with oh man, this is like the 2008 releases of Ubuntu. There was always nuances that were a little different where their defaults were different, but I don't think there's anything, any of that is old news and me talking about something that happened years ago, back in my day. But I think Debian is still a really good go-to. There's a ton of documentation for it. I don't frown upon Ubuntu. I got lots of friends that have chose that. I think Ubuntu is fine. As long as you're within the 13 version of core, you can move over to scale, no problem. You don't have to go to 13.3. I did my updates with the 13U6, so that's and they worked fine. Yeah, Debian and Ubuntu for me. I've never looked back. I mean, I got no hate for Red Hat. Well, maybe IBM. Maybe IBM was not the best steward of Red Hat. Maybe CentOS had to do a lot with IBM, but that's a different debacle. I think that overall, Debian has just been one of those solid, steady, works well. I know my way around it, and ain't broke, don't fix it distributions for when I set things up. Like, I know what to expect. Oh, by the way, I think it was Ubuntu 22. Someone can correct me here in the comments if it wasn't, but I think it was Ubuntu 22 when they tried to force you to use snap packages with Docker, and that caused me some drama. I hated them for that because you would do an apt-get install at Ubuntu, but it would swap it for you on the back end going, hold on, let me be helpful here. Let me give you a broken version of Docker because clearly you don't want it to just work. You want some problems to go with that. And yeah, that's a bit, yeah, that was why I stopped using some of that. Ubuntu is run by a company who I chose Debian. I'm scared Canonical will go the way of Red Hat. I don't know. I think they've been overall not, they've had their missteps like people do, and Shuttleworth is Shuttleworth. I imagine he's still in charge there. But I don't know. Yeah, it's just, yeah, you always have that worry with any of these companies. I do love Pop! OS for my desktop. To me, it's Ubuntu with some spit and shine and polish on it. It's really solid. It works. Ain't broke. I'm not a distro hopper. This is a ain't broke, don't fix it. I've been using Pop! OS for years on my desktop. This is where I do all my video editing. This is where I'm streaming from as a Linux system. It's so solid. I just don't want to switch because it just doesn't have issues. I really like Pop! OS. I know where the keys are. I know where the shortcuts are. I like the tweaks they put into it, the little things. Not that I think Ubuntu is bad for a desktop, but yeah. You're holding off on your core to scale migration until scale supports separate IPs for each app. It will after June. June 1st, I think, is when they'll have that implemented. It's kind of interesting the way they're doing it, and I double check. It's in a documentation, or I mentioned it, I should say, in the Fangtooth video. They're going to roll out and trying to get everyone on the new version. Then there's going to be what I'm assuming is going to be a point release update to give you that feature because they have to rebuild how the apps work. And that'll be a breaking change for older systems. So they're trying to get everyone on it before they push the breaking change. Someone decides to expose these self-hosted services. Do you have any security recommendations like BunkerWeb, fail to ban, CrowdSec? Yeah, any type of those is good. I haven't used BunkerWeb, but I know there's at least a few of my YouTube friends who've done some videos on it. It is a web application, open source web application firewall, essentially. CrowdSec is not bad either. Either one of those are good choices. If you're using CrowdSec, you probably don't need to use fail to ban as well. I don't know if there's any conflict in using both, but CrowdSec does a pretty good job. But hey, why not? I mean, fail to ban, throw it in there and say, hey, if someone tries to log in too many times on a list, do that. But honestly, you shouldn't have SSH exposed publicly. Usually you're doing something like exposing a service. So yeah, but those things are fine to put in front of it. there's always a risk, though. That's what I said like earlier at the beginning of this, is thinking about and considering those risks of, if someone gets onto that server, what would they have access to? What would they have lateral movement to on your network? And make sure that's blocked off as well. What video editor do you use? You know, I started out with Kdenlive. I used it for a while. I like Kdenlive. I think it's probably the best open source editor out there I've ever used. But I moved to DaVinci Resolve. I realized I was torturing myself for only the reason of trying to say I have a fully open source development cycle. You know what people don't care about? My open source development cycle for putting the videos out there. People do care about how many videos I'm able to get out. I'm able to get more videos and more editing done in a faster way with DaVinci Resolve. So I use DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve has a free version as well that works quite good. Actually, I'm shocked at how well DaVinci works in Linux. Rust core utils in Ubuntu 25.10 will be interesting. I agree with that. I'm preparing my upgrade, my NAS hardware, basically moving all the storage drives to a new computer. I've read that TrueNAS scale doesn't really have much issue with doing this. Yeah, you can import pools with TrueNAS. It'll import pools that are from another NAS. Moving it around, not a big deal. The drives can be in whatever order. As long as they can find all the drives that are related to the pool, that'll work. Still rocking Kdenlive. Yes, I think Veronica is probably one of the bigger channels using it, and I'm excited about that. Like, it's awesome that someone has, and by the way, I know it's gotten better since I last used it, but I like to see that people are still really in there, because I have a feeling Veronica doesn't just use it. She probably goes the extra mile and makes sure any bug reports are filed if she finds a problem with it. But Kdenlive is overall a pretty solid tool. Matter of fact, one of the things I did like about Kdenlive, and I only learned this from my Adobe friends before I switched to DaVinci, it crashed way less than my Adobe friends would complain about with all the Adobe software. So the Adobe was a crash monster. Kdenlive I found relatively stable, and I find DaVinci Resolve relatively stable as well. The only bug I've really found, unstable bug in DaVinci Resolve, is if I put my computer to sleep, it will cause it to sometimes tell me the GPU isn't supported. All I have to do is reboot to fix it. It's a weird issue. Sometimes it works, but when you go to render, it'll tell you that can't find some, it'll say something like can't find the codec. It's a weird error, but rebooting fixes it there. It's only when I put my computer in sleep mode, and it's inconsistent. It doesn't do it every time. My solution is to install Proxmox, spin up my existing core, configure with IOMMU, and migrate all my jails off with individual IPs. Yeah. Then I can spin up scale. I'm not a Fedora, RHEL, CentOS fan per se, but I really like the work the Universal Blue folks doing with projects like Bluefin and Bazite. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know they used it too. Interesting. Biggest issue I have with all distros, including Pop OS, is no built-in way to custom install apps. The app window icons can't right-click icons and get properties to see the executable location. Yeah, I guess it's not. I've never tried. I've never wanted to change the app icons, but Veronica may even answer with a way to do it. There's all kinds of GNOME tools you can add on to tweak that. So there's probably definitely ways to do it. It's just not by default any way to do it. Veronica says it's getting better with every release. That's awesome. There was a lot of matter of fact, I still have Kdenlive on my system, so there's a pretty good release cadence to it. There's updates, and it's moving forward all the time. Hey Tom, random question. But does potential Y2 YouTube income depend on watch speed? For example, someone watches 2x, do you get the same watching 1x? Just curious. To my knowledge, that has no effect at all. To my knowledge, YouTube does not have any way to tell us how fast, at least not that I know of, any way to tell us how fast you watch the video. I don't think it matters. I think they care that you watch, and I think they care that you watch an ad or that you're a premium YouTube subscriber. Linus broke this down in one of his recent videos talking about revenue coming in from YouTube. And the revenue coming in from YouTube is interesting because if I understood his video correctly, and I could be misquoting it, but essentially people who subscribe to the YouTube Premium actually end up helping creators more in terms of revenue. So that's, kind of interesting that the YouTube Premium subscribers are better. I've been a YouTube Premium subscriber. People complain about it, but honestly, I'm like, it's reasonably priced and I despise the ads. It's like, it's, I don't know. To me, it's not a bad deal. People will have varying opinions. I mean, I understand, we're getting kind of subscription to death. There's Netflix, there's all the other services out there. I only pay for none of them because my wife, you know what? If it wasn't for my wife, I'll be honest, I probably wouldn't have any subscriptions at all. I don't pay for any of them. She does because I don't use them. I don't watch a lot of TV. So the reasons people ask me why I'm still using MB and I say it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's also, I just don't use it much. I find a show that maybe I have properly acquired and then put on MB, and that's not very often. Are there any reliable and secure VPN solutions you recommend as an alternative to Cisco AnyConnect? I'll start since you're in Germany. It's not going to be a direct one-to-one replacement because it's a different type of solution. It's an overlay VPN, but it's also based in Germany and fully open source. And that's the folks over at Netbird. I'm actually excited because I've talked to them several times. I really like Netbird, like the team there. And I'm meeting with one of them soon. And Netbird is a great, simple remote access solution that you can fully self-host, or you can use their service. That's why it's got pricing. So if you want to do the free tier to test it out, they have a Teams tier, or go the self-hosted route and you don't have to do it. But that I think it's a really good VPN solution. I've done a video on it, so you can find that on my channel for Netbird. And a few other people have as well. It's a really actively developed project. It's really solid. I watch my vids at 1.5 and feel bad. I watch them. Yeah. Watch them at 2x. I'm probably understandable at 2x. Any of the 884 watchers fancy hit thumbing up? Yeah, please hit some thumbs up. I guess that's good for the algorithm. That's why I hear. Why YouTube Premium is better than cable. Good to know. It helps creators more. Yeah, I honestly watch a lot more YouTube than I do anything else. Now, I'm usually not watching tech YouTube. I love SciShow is great. That's what started this entire discussion 2 weeks ago, which I've learned there's a level of radon in my basement higher than I expected. And I kind of feel like I should do a short video. And I don't know where this goes. I don't know if it goes on my channel, just warning people about radon and how easy this is to learn whether or not you have radon in your living space. This is one of those, I had no idea. I ordered this because I watched a SciShow video about lung cancer rates, and it was top of mind because I actually know more than one person. One of them was on YouTube that passed away from a lung cancer. And it's just crazy to think that, the lung cancer rates are high among non-smoking people. And one of the things that SciShow taught me was that it's a common problem that people don't even know they have radon because it's not required in my area at all. That when you buy the house or anything, there's no radon testing required here. There is in certain cities, they have a requirement that you have to install a radon mitigation system. My city has no such requirements, so there's not one here. And it turns out I've been exposed to radiation, which is not good. The good news is, for those that don't know about radon, that number is low. But if we did a test and closed up the house, the number gets high. And it's not good. This is the Aronet sensor I bought. They're not cheap. I think this was like $160-ish. But yeah, radon's a thing. And it's a dangerous thing. You can also send for radon tests, and there's plenty of YouTube videos on it. But nonetheless, if it saves someone's life, I think that matters. And I'll start with a YouTube video. I watch a good SciShow video. I think it's like a 7-minute video where Hank Green's talking about lung cancer rates and mentions radon being one of the top causes. And I go, I live in a house that has a basement. I wonder if there's radon. Interesting. It's actually really simple. So first, to bring the levels back to this really low number, all I'm doing for that is cracking a window this much in my egress window, and I opened up one of the other windows. It brought them way down, which I almost always have those open anyways because I have this other sensor that lets me know. I've had this for years. This keeps an eye on the CO2 concentration in my area here. Thanks, Jeff Geerling, for that video. Also, good reason to watch YouTube. Jeff Geerling did a whole video about that. But the radon mitigation, if you look up radon mitigation, all they have to do is create a negative pressure underneath the foundation. So they can do that with a really simple vacuum pump. It doesn't take much. It's just a little fan. I call it vacuum pump. It's really just a vacuum fan that pulls air out and vents it. If you look up radon mitigation, it's a really simple process, which is good. Just nice, simple way to do it. Any Home Assistant versions of those? Yeah, all these support Bluetooth. And I just haven't gotten around to it, but the Aronet is supported in Home Assistant. So if we look up Aronet, so many tabs open. But because these are Bluetooth, and provided you have Bluetooth, you can tie these together. So they support the Aronet 2, 4, Radiation, and Radon Plus. By the way, I also have, let me grab it. I bought all the sensors because I was like, I want to know if I'm being irradiated. So I was like, I have a radiation sensor. Now, the likelihood of being irradiated pretty low. But if there's some type of nuclear incident that happens, I bet these would be really hard to acquire. So I bought one. These are not that yes, I spent I think they're like $100, but they're not crazy expensive. So yeah, I highly recommend. The Aronet sensors are well known for high quality. When you start reading or watching reviews, you'll find some people testing. They seem to really take the time. By the way, if you watch their videos on their site, the Aronet stuff is. Let me find the Aronet site. I like their engineers. Like, they make fun videos. I learned just by watching their blog here. They've got a lot of information, but they just good details on things, how their home sensors work and things like that. They actually have, good content. And on some of their stuff, they've got videos that are kind of funny. They have a YouTube channel, by the way. So they cover the sensors and talk about things, explaining how their Aronet sensors work. So yeah, I think this is great. Complete engineering level explainers in here. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Probably not EMP safe though. That's a whole different problem. I have radon mitigation system. The install is required when I bought the house. It's just a PVC pipe that goes below the basement floor and then up above the roof line and fan mounted. Yeah, it's really simple. It's not a overly complicated install. Well, I mean, there's some level of work that goes into it. Hey, Tom, huge fan. Hope all is well. Just had some dental surgery. So here to enjoy the stream. Ooh, dental surgery is never fun. Hopefully it went well. Hopefully you're not in too much pain. That's just, as someone who's missing several teeth. Yeah, you missed the self-hosted security part, or I answered questions in the beginning, but I'm still answering questions. So if there's questions about self-hosted security, I'm still there for that. The radiation sensor one time got into the yellow, and I don't know why. It did it briefly, then stopped, and then didn't. So I don't know. Is someone beaming something at me? I have no idea. Yeah, this one's been running for 13 days now, so I think I opened it on the live stream. Ooh, implants, rough. Oh, did I miss your preferred Cloudflare tunnel alternative? Yeah, we talked about Pangolin, and so let me find it and pull up the screen for it. I think that's one of the good ones out there. We've been playing with it a little bit. A few people have done some videos on it. But what's nice about Pangolin is you can get a really inexpensive VPS, not have to open up any ports. And this works for people who might be stuck behind NAT. And this will allow you to use that inexpensive VPS to do this. So it's a reverse proxy through WireGuard tunnel, exposes private resources on your network without opening ports, firewall punching, secure and easy to configure site connectivity via customer user space WireGuard client, and built-in support for any WireGuard client. Automated SSL certificate through Let's Encrypt. That's kind of table stakes these days, isn't it? So these are all solid, nice manage a simple UI dashboard, manage sites, users, roles, monitor site usage. They got some screenshots down here. Oh, by the way, extend functionality with existing plugins such as CrowdSec and GeoBlock. So they already have CrowdSec integrated in here. People were asking about that earlier. So yeah, it kind of fits that overall, like, hey, here's all the stuff it can do. And I think it's kind of a nice one, because if you want to self-host something, and especially if you're behind CGNAT or something like that, that can be a bit of a challenge. The other advantage, of course, is now you don't have to expose your public IP. So if someone decides to, and I don't know how frequent this happens, but I think it happens at least often enough still here in 2025. Someone goes, you know what I'm going to do? DDoS. And if they decide to DDoS your IP, it's not always easy to change your public IP. But if you have Pangolin and you're hosting it somewhere, you're like, well, cool, that IP is getting hammered. My internet still works, and you can sort it out differently then. Anyone had experience with adding middleware like Authentik to Nginx proxy manager? I have not done that. At some point I do want to dive into some of the open source authentication stuff, probably Authentiks. I think that's a pretty popular one out there. It's been on my radar for a little while to play with it, but I haven't really had the time. Hoping that Ubiquiti gets more stock of the XGS access points soon. We're getting ready to move into a new place and like to get a couple of them installed. Yeah, the demand on their new products is so high, and people act like Ubiquiti doesn't know what they're doing or whatever. And I think it's just so, I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. I mean, I would love everything to be in stock all the time, but I also realize when you make a product, do you know exactly what the demand for that product is? And if you make too much of the product and it doesn't sell, now I have a bunch of inventory and I have to manage that, versus, oh crap, people like this more than I expected. So measuring market demand for a new product launch. I mean, Ubiquiti knows there's a popularity of your product, and maybe, and I don't know, as I don't have any inside information, is maybe they already have it going, the factory can make X number per day. So before our release, we inventory this many, but eventually people are always going to buy at a rate faster than the current factories can produce. So that can be a challenge. 220 euros. Is that how much? It was not that much. Okay, it was I bought it on sale. So yeah, I guess it would be 220 euros because it's 189 US dollars. So yeah, I mean, if you're just looking for a Radon test, you can find inexpensive Radon tests. I went for this because I wanted to, well, matter of fact, I have now learned, well, my neighbors have now learned they have Radon too. So we are both getting Radon mitigation and systems installed. So this purchase, as a matter of fact, I have, I'm going to loan this to several other friends for the same thing. Like, if you had questions, I'm like, borrow it. Like, come borrow my Radon machine or Radon detector, leave it at your house for several days and see if there's a problem. I've been bouncing it between any of them. Don't we all just love the I use Arch, by the way? Do you have recommendations for Homelab projects for people looking to get experience in IT administration field and cybersecurity field? I think specifically around cybersecurity, running Security Onion is amazing. I've done a video on it. Security Onion is a big project, but it's a total threat hunting, observation, network engineering solution to go through and start dissecting all the data that goes through your network. I think it'll give you a really solid piece of insight and tooling that can really, through all the Googling you'll do and all the, you can throw it in ChatGPT as well. All the learning you can do, not only to get it set up, but to actually use it and start dissecting your network is awesome for having a better understanding of what these SIM tools do, how they work, and how they integrate. So yeah. This is one of the reasons I didn't go with the one-time radon test and I bought a sensor is radon changes over time. You can do a test in the summer and be fine because it's the way the pressure does or does not push up or down on the ground to bring that in. So it's kind of a scary thing to me to think that you could be irradiating yourself like, oh, it works all summer. We got the test in the summer, but then find out, oh, it doesn't work in the winter. We actually would have radon because if your furnace does, or if you're ejecting air, for example, out of your house. So you close up the windows in winter and you're moving air out of the house. You're creating negative pressure. You're pulling radon in. Well, now you have it when that occurs. And maybe that isn't occurring when you're doing it in the summertime. I don't know. It kind of depends. But yeah, definitely having the sensors year round is why I bought that. For home automation sensor switches, are you relying more on Wi-Fi connected devices or other communications? Zigbee, Z-Wave, Matter. I don't have any Matter devices at the moment, but Zigbee, Z-Wave, yes. I'm not doing it. I don't care much for doing them over Wi-Fi. I think Zigbee, Z-Wave is better. Matter, of course, being another popular option. I just bought a lot of stuff that happened to already be Zigbee and Z-Wave off of Amazon. I covered that in my Home Assistant video, and I talked about my reasons why, which are the ones I just disclosed. I just think it's a simpler protocol. I don't worry about them. People are like, oh my gosh, you're buying some random weird IoT device. And I'm like, yeah, but technically it's an Internet of Things device, but also it doesn't go online. So I have my little, this is one of my little sensors, not sensors. This is my little button. And, it depends on how many times you push this. And by the way, if you go look at my Home Assistant video, I list out all the equipment I use. This stuff is great for being able to have little controls. And this lasts way, way longer than it would if it was a Wi-Fi device. Being that I think this one's Zigbee or Z-Wave, I think it lasts several thousand button pushes before the battery has to be replaced. There's a little coin battery in there. You're not going to put a coin battery and have something last that long on Wi-Fi. Oh, and I just realized one of my sensors has the battery's gone out in it, but this is the same thing it applies to. I have some water sensors and this one is at 63%. This one's been running for years. This one I kept saying I'm going to replace the battery and it did bug me about it. And now the battery's dead. But yeah, these last a really long time. These little sensors, and I talk about them in my video. They're under the sink. They're next to some drains. I have a drain because I'm in a basement. So this keeps an eye on that and sends me an alert if it ever gets wet. It also alerted me that the battery was low, but I didn't heed that warning. It's good to know that Sweden requires that test. Yeah, I thought they don't have one, but I do have a carbon monoxide detector. I have two of them. So I've got that covered. So I'm not kind of weird that they don't have that on their list, but whatever, they got radiation. HA isn't confusing. You can use you can use your Zigbee or Z-Wave, but maybe not both of you have. If you buy an HA yellow, but not a green, unless you also buy a dongle, that won't matter if you're using Matter. Yes. All those words. The dongle, I talked about which dongle I'm using because it supports both. It doesn't, the dongle I have does not support Matter, but it does support Zigbee and Z-Wave. I want a good natural gas detector. That has me concerned, and I haven't really looked into it, but there was a explosion by my house, and this was a natural gas explosion. Where did it go? So yeah, these are natural gas explosions are crazy. I mean, it just destroyed this house. Unfortunately, one of the people died. The other person was in critical. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing. And we had two of them within a couple days. People, I don't know if they don't smell it or whatever. But yeah, that's it's crazy when the power, when you fill a house with gas, I mean, it just goes. It's the reason they put that smell in it. I know they do here in the US. I assume they do elsewhere, to let people know, like, hey, you smell that smell? That's because natural gas by itself, I believe, is odorless, but you want to make sure. Yeah, I know I have a sensor. My sensor in the camper will detect it. So if I leave something out of my camper, it's got its own dedicated carbon monoxide and propane sensor. I don't know about a natural gas sensor, but I think it would make a lot of sense. So yeah. They say a Geiger counter cannot detect radon, but it shows double the value in a cellar. I live in a radon house. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like not enough people, at least here in the US, because it's not mandatory in a lot of areas at all. Like certain cities have it, but any of the cities I've lived, it's never even been a required test. So it's kind of a completely up to me type of thing. People be messaging me. All right. Seen them on the news. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the natural gas stuff is just crazy. That whole the house explosion was just like, wow. Yeah, kind of I think I have a bigger picture of it. But just one of those wild things, man. Yeah. Tragedy, I really want to avoid, or if I can encourage others to somehow avoid as well. It's just like the radon. It's one of those things. Like I should message Hank Green. Hank Green, you might have saved my life. I put a radon detector in because of you. Hank and John Green are awesome. If you don't know who they are, take the time to look them up. I just finished John Green's book, Everything is Tuberculosis. I really like that book. It is just the way he writes, I really enjoy. So just, I'm probably at some point going to revise. Maybe, I don't know. I might bring my personal channel and start throwing a few things on there, or maybe I'll create a new personal channel that's just like random thoughts by Tom, book reviews that aren't tech related. That way people could say, Tom, do you have any thoughts on this? Yeah, just watch my personal YouTube, or I'll just ramble on about why I like John Green or something. Because I read a lot of other books that are not tech related, and I don't know where to put that information. I like sharing things with people, and I like, people like, hey, what's a good book, or what's it this or that you want to talk about, or even I love talking about motorcycles. I don't talk about them here, but that's one of my topics. I get into, discussions, and I have some of my hobby stuff, and maybe some of my non-tech hobby stuff will go on that other channel. The early subject of the discussion was self-hosted security and Homelab. We have wandered off topic because it's been an hour and 18 minutes since I started. So we're wandering around, but you are absolutely, I try to keep it as much as possible. We know we're winding down when Tom gets way off topic, but we're trying to keep it on the tech topic as much as possible. Oh, you're listening to Everything is Tuberculosis right now. Yeah, it is. Oh, that's a good book. I've liked a lot of his books, but the Anthropocene Review is truly one of my ones I've just like, that's a good tabletop book to have.
but I mean, I did it as audiobook, but the Anthropocene Reviewed is fun because you can grab any particular chapter anywhere in the book and it doesn't matter. And it's just a fun piece to read because each little chapter is a self-contained piece of information. But I've thought about maybe I have all the stuff, like just set up a Tom Lawrence's personal ramblings channel. Do you work on any devices for self-hosted security? I don't know about devices. I can't think of, I mean, outside of cameras, and I have my cameras tied to my Home Assistant. So I've got my cameras tied in with my Synology camera system. It lets me know what's going on. It lets me know the status of my doors. I'm using a Simply Safe system. I've talked about it publicly. So, but yeah, I do this so I can see if someone's, on the porch, if someone's in the driveway, etc. If it's snowing outside, I'm inside a lot. So besides the cameras and maybe this Simply Safe system that I happen to use, there's a lot of other ones out there. There's actually other locking systems for your doors that will integrate. Now, I don't have a full list of them, but you can find them over at Home Assistant that will integrate with Home Assistant, so you can like lock your deadbolts and things like that. I mean, cameras and such that can. I just mean cameras and such that can be air gapped. A lot of those ones I've seen seem to want to connect to online to work. No, the Synology ones don't. Neither do the Ubiquity ones. So either one of those are self-hostable. So if you use a Synology with the Synology NVR system, which I've done video, I haven't done any new videos on it because there really isn't anything new to talk about with Synology. They made the product works, and sometimes people ask, well, do you still use it, Tom? You don't make videos about it. I'm like, well, there's nothing new to talk about. They haven't had a new version with any they've done minor updates on it. And it still functions as it did a few years ago. So this is the live view versus this is when I use it in Home Assistant, it's only the last frame that it pulls. These aren't live views. When you do a live view in Home Assistant, it does something kind of goofy too. I haven't figured out. It does this, but then you close it and come back, and then maybe it'll stop doing that. Well, it's decided it wants to do it all the time now. But I just go over here and look at it in my Synology if I want to know. But the Synology works fine. I think the Ubiquity platform is a lot nicer. Unifi cameras are definitely what I might switch to them because, man, the Unifi stuff has become so nice. Blue Iris is also popular. My problem I have with Blue Iris is that, to my knowledge, it still only can run on Windows, and that bothers me. So, do you think the 10100 port on the G6 camera opens the UDM Pro to support more than 8 4K cameras? I don't know. That's a Ubiquity question. Like, use their storage calculator to figure that out. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know what makes it do that. I haven't tested to see if it does in Firefox. It was doing it once in a while, and now it seems to do it all the time. I did a video about this. So while you can use non-Unifi cameras on Unifi, they're not great. It's not a great situation. So yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree, Cody. I'm not unhappy with this Synology as far as like stability and functionality. It's been running for years without a problem, but it doesn't really compare to the Unifi platform. And you know that, and I know that. Like, Unifi, you can keep doing videos about because there's always something new. Synology's like, it works. It's a camera system. 2 thumbs up. It functions. They haven't really, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to double check the change log, but I haven't seen anything new added to them in a while. When you're searching through the cameras, though, it's not as nice. The whole, going through the recordings on here, just not near as good as it is on Unifi. It just doesn't have the same. Unifi's done a lot to give that, especially with the AI key. Oh, is it slick?
Semi front porch. Like, who is on my front porch today? And it doesn't give you as easy of a way to look through it versus like, I don't even know what triggered it here. Oh,
I know. I was driving home on it. The vehicle shower.
Daughter coming and getting some stuff out of it. So it's okay, but it's not compared to the way Unifi lets you do it. And yeah, it just Unifi. Now they do have Face ID and some other cool features in here, but they're not near as nicely polished as they are in a Unifi system. Yeah, Unifi's really come along with the last year has been like a speed run for Unifi for a lot of features. I've been waiting on AI keys come back in stock for a couple months. Even my distributors do not have them. The demand is high because it's a really cool device. I get why people want it. Like it's just a neat add-on. The concept for it and everything is really, I just think they did a great job with it. So I will probably switch over to the Unifi camera system. I'm not swapping cameras until it's nice out. Notice the snow on the ground? Yeah. Even though the snow melted, it's all mud outside. And I don't want to, I'm waiting until a nice day. But then when it gets really nice out, I go ride my motorcycle. So, you know, eventually I'll get around to doing the other stuff. But I am going to wind this down here because I actually have a few more things I want to finish and I want to eat. I'm kind of hungry. I probably got to feed my son too. He usually starts hitting me up for food because it is 4:30 Eastern Standard Time here. So that means it's about time to eat. But thank you all for joining. Awesome having all of you here. Email me. Where did it go? Because some of you have been doing this. And I've been replying, homelab@launchsystems.com. So if you want to reach out, say hi, things like that, that's where to find me. Of course, launchsystems.com, social connections, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of motorcycle? My little Honda is what I've been riding. It's actually all I have now. I sold my other motorcycles. I had a lot of motorcycles and mostly now I'm going to throw it up there. This is what I used to ride was a Super Tenere. I go on these big adventures, but now I just ride this little Honda. This is mostly what I ride now is a little Honda motorcycle. That one. So that's what when it's nice out, I'll go ride it. It's not nice out today. So, so thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to wander off. Take care.